Hey book readers, this is the B-Side Book Reviews, and today we are going to look at a classic, Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. Northanger Abbey? Am I saying that right? Northanger Abbey. Okay, I'll go with that. I'm not sure about some of the characters' names I'm pronouncing either. I think I have Jane Austen down though. Other than that, oh well. Grab some coffee and let's take a look at this book. Here, you can read it. Northanger Abbey is a satire of Gothic novels written by English author Jane Austen and, copying this right off of the Wikipedia page. This was supposed to be a satire. This was supposed to be a novel. And the bigger question, this was supposed to be entertaining? Okay. From what I gather from all these pages of muck, there's this young teenage girl named Catherine, I think, who goes to the English party town of Bath to come out into society, as young teenage girls of somewhat high social standings tended to do back in those days. Teenage girls of lower social standings they just married the first guy who showed an interest, had a bunch of kids, and died in their early 30s of some fatal disease that we now call the common cold. However, our Catherine here goes to Bath with some rich relative or neighbor or someone and parties down with all the rest of the young high society party animals of Bath. Apparently, Catherine is an avid reader, and her mind tends to get carried away with the story she's reading at the time, and has a tough time separating her books from real life. Well, she hooks up with some screwy guy named Tilney, T-I-L-N, Tilney, who is from a screwy family, and she gets invited to spend some time at their big screwy estate. Now, I think the place was called Northanger Abbey, thus the name of the book. If not for the estate, the title of the book would be something more like Fear and Loathing in Bath. Now, while at Northanger Abbey, Catherine becomes interested in how the lady of the house died. Lost in her Gothic novels, the impulsive teen starts to suspect that maybe the screwy father of the Tilney family had a hand in his wife's death. Yeah. Well, this screws up everything and pisses off the screwy father and sends our whimsical Catherine packing back to her family. In the end, she winds up marrying the screwy Tilney son, and I'm guessing they lived happily ever after. In all reality, Catherine probably died in childbirth at the age of 20 or so, or died of an infection she got from a hangnail. Times were tough back in those screwy times, regardless where you stood on the social scale. Yeah. Northanger enjoyment? Ooh, how can I put this? What the common reader does not grasp is that its humorous nature, far from being a condemnation of such delightfully horrid works, and okay. Once again, I'm quoting this straight from Wikipedia. I didn't even understand that sentence. However, the question concerning my enjoyment of this novel is very easy to understand. And that would be, oh hell no! In fact, this was one of the most torturous books I've ever read. And my mom loved Jane Austen books. I'm thinking that women enjoy reading Jane Austen in the same sense they enjoy being pregnant. Guys look at such and think, how could you enjoy that? And like a pregnancy, women probably enjoy the thought of reading this book, but then find it extremely painful and can't wait for it to be over with. Now, how's that for symbolic writing? Okay, I just looked at the rankings of Jane Austen's works, and this book came in dead last concerning all of her books. Apparently, this is not the book to start out with when reading Jane Austen's works. Instead, this is a book to be read in repentance for one's sins. Instead of beating yourself with a whip, as the medieval monks used to do, well, read this book here instead. However, if one finds the actual content of the actual novel to be torturous and confusing, I would invite them to read the concluding part of the book called Letters. This part. If this doesn't make a reader long for their old college algebra book, nothing will. I've had more fun stepping on nails than I had reading those gosh awful pages. Characters. Okay, we have Catherine, who I kept getting mixed up with Catherine from Wuthering Heights. And then the voice of Kate Bush kept entering my mind, singing, Wuthering, Wuthering, Wuthering Heights. Indeed, Kate never sang a song about Northanger Abbey. I'm pretty sure nobody did. But our heroine is supposed to be in her mid to late teens. Indeed, a blossoming young woman, ripe for the picking. Okay, let's just try to make her a little older, because there's a scene in one of the movies where she's imagining herself in a bathtub, and she stands up to greet Mr. Tinley. So, that's the image I carried in my mind throughout the story. I thought such just might help me get through this gosh awful book, but it really didn't. As for everyone else in the story, well, everyone in Bath was kind of screwy. A bunch of regal, screwy partiers. And everyone at Northanger Abbey, well, they were kind of screwy as well. And they all seemed to be walking on eggshells most of the time. Catherine should have just stayed home and married one of the local farm hands. Yeah. To be truthful, I had no idea what this story was even about. After a few pages of, what the heck? I was pretty much skimming right through this book, much like I did with a lot of my electronic books back in college. Fortunately, though, I had watched my mom's old VHS Northanger Abbey movie. Then halfway through the book, I watched another version of the movie on YouTube. Yeah, that's the only way I knew squat about the plot. While reading Austen's writing style, I had to ask myself, did everyone write that way back then? No wonder illiteracy was so rampant back in those days. If I thought that this was the only stuff I had to read, I wouldn't have bothered to learn to read either. No. Not only that, but some Austen sentences would stretch out long enough to make even the most liberal English teacher cringe. And let's not forget about the paragraph length. At times she would run a paragraph for a page or two. Those last snippets in the book were nothing but one long paragraph. Talk about brutal. Check that out. One paragraph that covers pages and pages. Oh my gosh. I had to wonder if Jane Austen wrote this book just to torture people. Yeah. By the time she finished this book, she was probably a bitter old spinster and was basically pissed off at the entire world. Okay, she was only in her late 20s when she finished writing this book. But back in those days, that was someone in their golden years. Here, there it goes. One long paragraph. Well, it starts there. I don't know how this book ranks with the length of the rest of Austen's works, but it was considerably shorter than both Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre from the Bronte sisters. However, I felt as though I had read both of those books plus the majority of my college textbooks by the time I had drugged myself through this torturous novel. Indeed. When I finished the actual story part, I was hoping that the 180 pages remaining was simply an index or perhaps a referral list of therapists that I would need to consult after reading this awful book. But no, it didn't stop there. Whoever put this book together threw in pages of letters that were even more confusing than the actual story. And to twist the knife even more, there were snippets of other people's lives that I cared nothing about. Yes, more penance had to be paid. What? Was I being punished for all those lustful thoughts I had back in high school? My mother warned me that I'd have to pay for that someday. And what's even worse is the fact that before I even got to the screwy story, I had to suffer through 42 pages of thoughts of some literary geek who thought that their mindful literary insights were worth 60 minutes of my life. Seriously? So that was Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, which I'm still not sure I'm saying that right. Northanger Abbey and Northanger Abbey Northern. I don't know. Was the guy's name Tinley? Tinley from Northanger Abbey. Now I'm all flustered. Just go read a book. Northanger Abbey.